you don't necessarily have to be passionate about what you're doing, but you have to be passionate about why you are doing it.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Empowered Podcast. Today, I am talking to someone I met a long time ago. Actually, I met her at New Media Expo, and I was really impressed by what she was doing. I was impressed by how much help she has given me, even though I have occasionally not gotten promptly back to some of her emails. But she saw a need in the marketplace, specifically with entrepreneurs and with podcasters. She saw the need, and she decided to meet the need. And I think that's such a wonderful way to go about starting a business and adding value to the world. Jessica Rhodes is on the show today. How are you doing, Jessica?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your show today, Ellery.
You are very, very welcome. I'm excited and honored to have you, and I'm excited to dive into how you started your business, how you discovered this need that we'll go into, and what you do with your business. And now you started your own podcast, and it's just taking off and doing awesome things there. So I'm excited to have you on and talk to you today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
So just give us some background. Like I just mentioned, you and I met at New Media Expo in Las Vegas in January. So that was, right at, 10 months ago, I think.
It's coming up.
And you hadn't started the podcast then, but you had, what was it, Entrepreneur Connection? Tell us the URLs and how you started.
Yeah, I'll give you the brief backstory of everything. So I started, just a brief background of me as an entrepreneur. I started my business a couple of years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was still pregnant. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but we didn't have the ability to just live on one income. So luckily for me, my dad is an entrepreneur. He's a business coach, works at a home office. So he told me about this world of being a virtual assistant. And I was a little bit resistant to the idea because I was working in a nonprofit. I had become a director of my own staff. So to then say, I'm going to be a virtual assistant, it just felt like it was a step down. But he explained to me that virtual assistants are entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they have their own clients. I mean, it is a service-based business. So I wrapped my head around it and I said, okay, great. I'll start a business doing administrative, service-based work. I'll just do whatever I can to bring money in that will keep me at home and then go from there. So my dad so kindly became my first client and really helped me get my feet wet in marketing. He made me watch all of he has a web TV show about marketing and business building. So I read all of his books and just really, going from nonprofit, I had to learn a lot about business. So one of the first tasks that he had me do for him as a client was getting him booked for podcast interviews. Podcasting has really taken off recently, but it was still a really great way for entrepreneurs to get exposure a couple years ago. So he had me do that. And as I'm emailing these podcasters and pitching him as a guest, I started getting a lot of people asking me what I did and how I helped entrepreneurs. So I just explained that I have a virtual assistant business and this is what I do for my client, Jim Palmer. And it just kind of, hearing that need and having so many people ask, well, I need help with this too. I had a conversation with my dad, who is also he's my business coach. I had a conversation, and that's when we thought of the idea to actually create a business around it, which is now interviewconnections.com. So I work with podcasters to book them guests. I work with entrepreneurs to get them booked on other shows. And so, now I just celebrated 1 year in business for Interview Connections. So I finally launched my own podcast because I was so busy working on everyone else's show. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun.
So you raised a question, and the debate online about, do you follow your passion? Do you follow the money? Has probably raged since the internet was invented, and probably has been going on since the first job, 1,000 years ago or whatever. You said that you kind of wanted to start making money as soon as possible. Did I understand that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What would you tell somebody who, or maybe what would you do that same thing again, or would you double down on your passion? And the way I present this question almost answers it for me. But do you like that you went for, I don't want to say the quick dollar because that has a negative connotation, and I don't mean it that way.
No, I'm not.
Would you do that, or would you follow your passion? Or maybe this is what you're passionate about. How did that go?
I hear what you're asking, because it's so funny. I hear this all the time. We hear this all the time, a lot, on entrepreneur podcasts. People talking about following their passion, or follow the money. And I am totally in the camp of following the money. Because for me, I didn't have the luxury, I had to make money. I, had a baby on the way. We have, had a mortgage. I was in a position where I had to bring in money. So I didn't have the luxury of, writing a blog and starting a podcast and just having fun building a fan base before I could actually think about how money was going to start coming into my bank account. So, if you can do that, all the power to you. But I had to figure out a way to get people to pay me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I blogged for 2 years while I still had a corporate job and was making pretty solid money over there. But money wasn't necessarily the focus for me. Right. Had I to do it again, I even wrote a blog post about this. You need to have something out there to sell, even if you're just a hobby blogger and you think you might transition. And Carrie Oberbrunner and I talked about this. I would have loved for it to have been a light switch thing. I got let go from my job on a Friday, and on Monday I'm making money on my blog. But it doesn't happen that way. And I like that you have that similar perspective. How did you? So you started connecting your dad to be this guest expert on all of these podcasts. What were some of the tongue tied today? What were some of the specific things that you did to bring in revenue as soon as possible? And could you, if you're okay with it, how long did it take you to start bringing in money?
Right. So, well, first I wanted to make it, before I get to this question.
Yeah, I interrupted the story. Sorry about that.
No, it's not okay. I wanted to make a comment about the kind of the passion and the follow the money, because I get the sense that perhaps a lot of your listeners are people who are, wanting to take that plunge into starting a business and figuring out when to, maybe take it full time. And the way I look at it is, you don't necessarily have to be passionate about what you're doing, but you have to be passionate about why you are doing it. So for me, my why, I was so passionate, my why is being a work-at-home mom, being able to have a lifestyle where I can spend as much time with my family as I want. Tomorrow I am not working and I'm driving to visit my sister and brother-in-law in Rochester. So, and I didn't have to ask anyone to do that. So for me, I'm so passionate about having that kind of lifestyle that I don't necessarily need to be passionate about what I'm doing. Now, I have come to a place where I really enjoy business. I love it, but it's not my passion, if that kind of makes any sense. Gene Hammett, right? From
I don't.
He's good friends. I think we have a lot of mutual friends, but his podcast is Leaders in the Trenches. He started his show shortly after NMX as well. Okay. And he interviewed Larry Winget on his podcast, and Larry Winget just so perfectly talked about passion in business. And he explained, he gave the definition of passion in the dictionary and how it's this overwhelming, uncontrollable feeling of love. And he goes, that's not how you feel about your business. Okay. You might really enjoy it, but it's not something that you're uncontrollably in love with. Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, just being passionate about why you're doing it is kind of my take on it. But then you asked about kind of what I started doing to make money. So, as I mentioned, my dad was my first client. So, for me, yes, I was kind of lucky, it was my dad. But for anyone out there, find that first mentor, find somebody who can kind of take you under their wing, because I just started making money for, he was paying me $15 an hour to do some data entry work, to check links on his website. I was categorizing he had 4 years worth of weekly videos that I watched and categorized. So I was doing a lot of very basic admin work. So that's kind of how I started. And then as I was doing well with that, he started giving me more tasks to, once I proved that I could provide a return on his investment in me as a virtual assistant, he gave me more work. So then I took a Pinterest marketing course and I learned all about Pinterest marketing. I learned, just everything there is to know about Pinterest marketing. So then I started offering that as a service. So I did it for my dad. Once I had really great results on his account, I used that as a way to get new clients. Say, look, I've been doing Pinterest marketing for Jim Palmer. This is the type of web traffic it's bringing to his website. People are staying way longer on his website who come from Pinterest. So then my dad was able to refer some of his contacts. He posted about me doing this work for him on Facebook. And so that brought some people saying, hey, I've been looking for someone to do my Pinterest page. Let's talk. And that's how I got my second client, Jason Silverman, who's we're still doing his Pinterest page today. So he's one of my longest time clients. And so that, basically that hourly VA work of managing someone's Pinterest account that's kind of the first way I started bringing in money. And, that got me up to, couple $1,000s a month, and interview connections is really what helped kind of excel me to the next level.
Wow, that's awesome. Because when you mentioned Larry Winget, I think it might have been when he was on the Eventual Millionaire podcast with Jamie Tardy, and he was talking about how I don't know if he got fired, laid off, or something with his job, and he started mowing lawns. He was making a lot of money, and he just like you had a mortgage, had a kid, wife, family, and all that. And he started mowing lawns. And I'm not really all that familiar with Larry, but what I have seen just in the last couple of weeks of learning who he is, he's kind of an in-your-face, get it done. And I'm not surprised he said something about passion.
Yeah, I really like his candor and his style. I'm a big fan of Larry's, and I've only really kind of seen some of his podcast interviews, so I haven't, I don't know much about him, but I also like Dan Kennedy is, an old marketing guy. I really like him. I just like that no BS kind of, this is business, cut and dry. That's kind of my style. And, just speaking of, the hustle, it's like, I'm sure you're familiar or I'm sure you're a fan of Shark Tank. We all are, all entrepreneurs are. They're always talking about the hustle. They rarely invest in people, in entrepreneurs who get up there and say, the first thing I want to do is hire somebody to do this work for me. They invest in entrepreneurs who are doing everything themselves, who are working, 12 hours a day and really building their businesses, doing the hard work. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. I just hustled my butt off early on, and it's been going good.
No, that's perfect. I have a weird question for you, but since you brought up Shark Tank, I've emailed a lot of my community about this, and I was sitting down and I was going to write another blog. I've got a couple posts about what I've learned from different aspects of Shark Tank. And I was going to sit down and write another one. And then I sat down and I realized the type of business that shows up on Shark Tank isn't the kind of business that I want to build.
Yeah.
I don't want 10 employees or 20 or 100 and stock options and all of that kind of stuff. And I made that mistake when I first started. I was thinking, how do I set up a CCorp and, get not an LLC, but, well, I guess that's the CCorp part, and figure out how to do all this stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Is that, do you want a Shark Tank type business, or are you good where you are at the size?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I do not ever aspire to have a business that is not in my home. So
yeah, with that ability to pick up and go visit family and friends.
The furthest I'll go is one of my dreams that I hope to get next summer is I want to get a shed in my backyard that can be a home office. So you can get sheds custom made where they have windows and insulation, and you can wire them with electricity. So that's where I want to move my office to. I think that'd be really cool, but I don't want to go any further than that. So really, to answer your question, I don't want employees. I have contract workers. I have a team of virtual assistants, but I don't want employees. I don't want a big company. I want to just be able to have a business that supports a lifestyle and, makes my family comfortable. So I'm with you on that. And as far as, I mean, I'm not going to, I have an S Corp. So I incorporated my business, but I mean, just incorporating the business doesn't mean you have to have employees and grow a large company. I just, researched and got advice from my accountant and my coach on what was going to help me pay the, least amount in taxes for the business.
Do you know Dan and Vanessa Hayes?
No.
Their podcast and blog is Simple Life Together, and I had them on my show. They were one of my very first. Are
they a married couple that talks about? I'm trying to think if I might be thinking of somebody else. Go ahead. she's a professional organizer. They were both in there. I think they met in the Air Force. Oh,
but
okay.
When you mentioned the shed, they have one of those just north of San Antonio here in Texas, and they call it their World Shed Quarters. But can you? Sometimes, as you know, podcasts can take somewhat of an unexpected turn. But I've been looking for a good answer to this question. I have an LLC. You went with an S Corp. Mm-hmm. Do you mind telling us why you went that direction? Maybe where you found some of that information that led you to that decision?
Yeah. So I'm trying to okay. So first I talked to my business coach, who's, my dad. He has a similar business in that he doesn't have any employees. He works from a home office. He has we both have recurring revenue from a lot of clients. So just looking at the basic model there, I asked him what he was using so he could just tell me kind of what has really worked for him. I did research a lot, and I'm trying to remember the book. I'll try to find it to you and send it to you afterwards if you want to put it in the show notes. But I found a book
awesome.
Right around the same time I was reading or listening on Audible to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I found another book that Robert Kiyosaki, he referenced the author. So I went and found that author, and he had written a book about all the different entities. And so, I mean, the short answer is, every single business is going, a different entity is going to be good for a different business. So I get kind of annoyed when I listen to business podcasts and some host is saying, everyone needs an LLC. I'm like, that is not good advice, because some people might and some people might not, so different entities are good for different businesses. I interviewed Diane Gardner on my podcast, and that episode will be coming out in November, but she is a tax coach. So what she actually does is, she is an accountant, but what she does as a tax coach is she sits down with entrepreneurs to really help them figure out how they can pay the least amount in taxes that they can legally pay. Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, we're all paying way more in taxes than we can be. I mean, she was telling me on our interview that, even if you work from a home office, if you drive to a meeting, you can deduct the mileage, that you took to drive to that meeting, off your taxes. So, I went with an S Corp because basically based on my research and based on the advice I got from, my accountant and my coach, it looked to be the best for me. I think the basic things about an S Corp is that, take all the, I am so not an accountant, so I'm going to hope I don't totally butcher this explanation, but, you pay your, for me as the only employee of the business, as the owner of the business, I pay a certain amount to myself as a salary, and then there's flow through. So then I can also get distribution at a lower, and I pay less on the distribution in taxes than I would on the salary. And then the rest of the profits flows through. So that's kind of like the 101 version.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I had made the decision to go with an LLC. Of course, I'm the only employee as well, and the owner didn't want to do any sort of shares and have the regular meeting, because you're supposed to have like quarterly or monthly meetings and minutes and stuff with an S Corp, right?
Maybe I don't do that.
Okay.
Hope the IRS isn't listening. Well, yeah, I own 100% of the shares. And
okay, yeah, because there were some of those, and like you said, there's advantages to each one: C Corps, S Corps, LLCs. There's like LLPs. There's all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure there should be some sort of disclaimer like, we're not attorneys. You should be.
I know. I'm
consulting.
afraid there's like an accountant or lawyer listening, and they're like rolling their eyes right now. But yeah.
Yeah, I met with an attorney before we filed. I've only had mine a couple months, and was doing kind of the sole proprietor route, selling as an individual type thing before. And I guess in Texas, once you make $600 in a calendar year, you have to be a business, or you have to do something more official. I don't know.
It's the same type of thing with we have a household employee. We have a nanny, and we pay her much more than $600 over the course of a year. So she has to be an employee of ours, not, a contract worker. So
you should make her a quote janitor under your company.
I don't think she'd like that very much.
I don't know if it works exactly like that, but yeah, that whole paying yourself thing, because that's something that I've done or not done. I've put any money that I've made from my business, is sitting in an account, and I pay all of my bills from it. Buy new equipment from it. So I technically haven't paid myself anything.
I hear what you're saying. So, I mean, I did this, it was earlier this calendar year. So I incorporated the business in April of this year. And, it was at the end of last calendar year, early this year, I got, I switched everything over. So my business is totally separate from our personal finances. So the business has its own account. As a corporation, I have to use a payroll service. So I literally get a paycheck from myself through a paycheck company. Cause then they make sure that every quarter I'm paying, payroll taxes. So, it's kind of annoying. It makes you want the government in your life a lot less, but I guess.
Oh yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Just get out of my way.
I'm like, what? I have to pay taxes on this?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Here's another technical question, but it's not a difficult one. Do you own one company and all of these things flow under it? Like,
yes. So my corporation is Entrepreneur Support Services Inc. And then all of the, and then I have different websites. So interviewconnections.com, Entrepreneur Support Services, my Pinterest. So it's all of the services are under that one corporation, but for the sake of marketing, they all have different business names and websites.
And just out of curiosity, I was going to say, do you actually live in Rhode Island, or do you incorporate there? But I see that Jessica lives in Rhode Island with her husband, Jamie, their beautiful son, Nathan, and their cat.
Yeah, I do live in Rhode Island. I know that, some people will incorporate their business in Nevada, for example, because of tax purposes, and they live in California. I'm not smart enough to do that. I don't know. I just don't understand. I don't know the ins and outs of that, either that loophole or that law. So nope, I just live here.
No, that works. I asked an attorney about that. And the short answer was it's a lot easier, especially for people like us, Jessica, who it's us and only us. Right. It's better to just do it in your own state.
The people that I know who have done that are people that I know have a lot more going on in terms of, real estate investing and employees. So I think there's a lot more to it for people that do that.
Yeah. So anyway, I know that's going to be useful information to the listeners. It was very helpful to me, but let's go back to, and I know I'm the one that derailed this, so I'm
yeah. Let's end that conversation by telling everyone to consult their accountant or an attorney and to not actually take our stories as advice for their own lives.
Yes, hopefully we just raised more questions that you can go and actually ask the expert, because like you said, I've got the LLC, you've got a corp, we're in different states, we have different attorneys and different accountants.
I'm sure Texas and Rhode Island have just a little bit of differences in terms of their tax laws.
Yeah, exactly. So you start, your very first customer was your dad, which is amazing. You you started getting, you're doing such a good job. And by the way, I encourage everyone, if you are listening to this and you have a podcast, definitely check out Interview Connections. Jessica has helped me get some fantastic guests on my show, and the amount of information and the quality of information and background and just bios and resources for the guests that she's connected me with are way better than I've gotten from going directly to guests, and just are absolutely amazing. So go to interviewconnections.com and check out what she's got going on, because again, it's fantastic resources. So, but your dad was your first customer. You were doing such an excellent job, which took me to that tangent there. Mm-hmm. You're doing an excellent job. People recognized that, and you built a business around that, which is incredible. You're adding value before you said, "Hey, I'm going to, go full time and start, making all this money doing this stuff." Is that essentially the process that you went through?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was, really just tested out the service, and I didn't even know I was testing it out. So in hindsight, it looks like I had this whole master plan, but I really just, when I started booking my dad for interviews, it was really just because he told me to. And then, and then once, we realized it was, this is something people need. I bring a really great, skill. I used to go door to door for my nonprofit job. So I just had a lot of, kind of chutzpah, and I just knew how to do a lot of that cold calling and build relationships with people fast, which is, all those skills that I learned going door to door have really helped me in building relationships with guests and with podcasters. So, after I realized it was a service that people needed, that's when I started offering it to more one-on-one clients. And once I realized enough people wanted it, that's when I launched interviewconnections.com. So, got the website up, figured out kind of how it would work, and, how I envisioned the service working at first is, different from from how it works today, because I was constantly, changing it based on how clients wanted to use the service. And, a year later, I've finally really come to a service that I'm like, okay, I'm at the right price point. It's working well. I'm building out a team of VAs who can help me book the guests, because for a long time I was doing everything myself, from the graphics to the finding the guests to the confirmation emails. I still do a lot of it, but I don't do any of the graphics. I have graphic designers, and I have virtual assistants who help me do a lot of the administrative and coordination with the guests.
Now, when you were growing up, did you think that you wanted to go into business for yourself, work for yourself, be an entrepreneur, business owner, or maybe because that was the route your dad had taken, or did you always kind of think, I'm going to go and work for somebody else for 40 years and see what happens?
I thought I was going to be on Broadway up until I was about 18 years old. So, neither.
Okay.
I never really thought about it. I was never that kind of introspective as a teenager. I did theater my whole childhood. I really liked it. So I thought I'd go to school for musical theater and sing and dance on Broadway in New York City. A high school teacher finally got through to me before I went to college that you're not good enough to do that, and please do not waste your time. And seriously,
and
most people need to hear that, because seriously, I was not good enough. I would have never made it. But that's kind of so it was really when I was in college that I started rethinking what I would actually do post college. And for a long time, I got a job at the nonprofit that I worked for many years. I worked there for 6 or 7 years, from the start of college, to well after I graduated. And I thought that I would just do that. Activism, community organizing, really liked working to save the environment and make the world a better place. But, a switch flipped in my mind when I realized that I wanted to be a mom and I wanted to have kids, and that my focus and my priority then shifted to a child that I would bring into the world. And it was no longer on, saving the world from mass destruction. So that's really when I realized that starting a business would be a good fit, is because it would allow me to be at home and to control my own, to control a lifestyle that I wanted, to support a lifestyle that I wanted. So really, for me, it was never really about not working for somebody else. It was just something I kind of fell ass backwards into, and it's worked out really well.
Very cool. What does Jamie do? Can we
Jamie,
ask about him?
my husband he's a lawyer. He graduated from law school a few years ago. He doesn't work full time as a lawyer, but he is actually the policy director for Planned Parenthood. So it, works in politics and nonprofit, and is in a completely different world from me.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to find out what and I don't always ask that question, but it's always interesting to find out what the other half does. Because my wife she works at a hospital doing echocardiography.
Wow.
And she loves doing that stuff, has no desire to start a business of her own, anything like that. But she loves helping me, and we'd have a podcast together. We have a lot of fun.
That's cool. It's kind of funny because you know how they say there's the 7-year itch with couples because you're basically a whole new person after 7 years. I mean, Jamie and I have been together, I don't know, we've been married for just a couple years, but have been together probably 7 years. And I do look at the people that we were when we first met, and I'm like a completely different person. I mean, when we both met, we were both working for nonprofit activism. We had so much in common. And now it looks like we don't have a lot in common because I'm in business and he's a nonprofit, but we still have a strong relationship because you just grow together. But yeah, definitely have a lot of differences in terms of our work life.
Well, we were, my wife's name is Ashley. Oh, you've met Ashley.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She was reading this blog post yesterday. I think the guy's link was, I don't know. It's something about introverts and extroverts and how opposites attract and things like that. And I don't know if you and Jamie one's an introvert, one's an extrovert, but Ashley and I are that way. I'm very introverted, and she's becoming more. We're both gravitating towards the middle. She used to be very extroverted. I used to be very introverted, and we're coming together. But like you said, we've known each other for 12 years, been married for 4.5, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Jamie is definitely an extrovert. He's super social, makes a lot of friends. I used to think, I don't think I'm an introvert because I think by definition, introverts are energized when they're alone, and then extroverts are energized around people. I do find that I am energized by being around people. So I think by definition, I'm an extrovert, but I do like to be alone, and I have a harder time making friends. So I think in that respect, we are, opposites, but I think on paper, by definition, we're probably both relatively extroverted.
So a good match then.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got the entrepreneur support services, you've got the podcast guest booking services, and now you have your own podcast. Why did you start your own podcast? I know you mentioned you'd been setting up the guests for other people. Now you're doing it for yourself. But what brought you to the decision to start one on your own?
Yeah, so, it's a couple things. I mean, first of all, I believe it's an amazingly effective marketing tool, and I strongly believe in content marketing. So I've been blogging since the beginning of my business. I have been doing weekly videos for Interview Connections TV since April. And so I really want to just build out my platform of content marketing because, not everyone reads blog posts, not everyone listens to podcasts. So I want to be able to reach more people. So it was a business decision in that respect, but I really love podcasts. I listen to a ton of podcasts. I really love the medium. I think it's an amazing way to connect with people because, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but when you are listening to somebody in your earbuds, I really feel like I am friends with all these podcasters I listen to. And a lot of them don't even know who I am. So I would say there is more passion for podcasts and other parts of my business. I love it. So there was that. And really what made me actually take the plunge and just do it is right after podcast movement. I was super motivated to start a podcast after podcast movement because, again, just going back to a business decision, I really want to get into speaking. I want to I led a panel at Podcast Movement. I would love to have my own session at Podcast Movement. I would love to speak at New Media Expo one day. So I know that if I'm going to be speaking in the podcasting world, I better have my own show. So that was a big reason I said I got to do this. And I also read our friend Jared Easley's book. And his book, Podcasting Good to Great, just gave so many wonderful ideas on how to build relationships and collaborate with other entrepreneurs and podcasters. So just all that together really motivated me to just take action and get it done. So, and I've really been enjoying it. I've recorded a bunch of episodes, and it's been a lot of fun.
How do you find guests for your show? Do you have a certain criteria? Do you have a certain target?
So I decided the podcast would be about content and relationship marketing. And the reason I kind of narrowed it down to those two things is because when I look at how I've grown my business, it's through, again, content marketing. So always, putting out content, email newsletters, videos, blog posts, and then building relationships with people. Most of my business, up until like recently, now that people are starting to just hear about me, has really been referral based. So it's all been people that I've built relationships with. So, and building relationships with I think podcasting is all about building relationships, and that's kind of what I've made my business around. So those are the kind of the two criteria. So I interview entrepreneurs who are extraordinary at one of those two things. So far I interviewed, Michael Stelzner, who's, obviously amazing content marketer with Social Media Examiner, but he's also amazing at relationships. I mean, he gave some amazing information and stories in that interview about how to build relationships with people. Because really, when he started Social Media Examiner, the way he built it up so fast is because he went to Blog World and just interviewed people, went out to lunch with people, had, broke bread with people. And that really allowed him to, make great friends with people who are very successful in the industry already. Like Mari Smith, for example, we talked a lot about his relationship with her. I've interviewed my client, Stephen Essa, who is an expert at webinars, and that episode has not been released yet, but he gives a blueprint, step-by-step strategy on monetizing your podcast through webinars. So definitely, if anyone's interested in podcasting, I mean, he just walked you right through it. It was amazing. And how do I find them? Well, they're all people I've booked before or their clients. I've got
You knew them.
I already knew them. So, but I am interviewing, I've had people reaching out to me. Like, I'm really excited to interview this woman that I was just connected to. She has a campaign where, it's kind of like a body image campaign where she photographs women nude. And I need to learn more about it, but she's definitely going to have something to say about building relationships, because nobody's going to pose nude unless they feel comfortable and they have a relationship with you. I guess unless they're a stripper, then they'll just do it. But but that's not what her stuff is about.
Maybe. No, it's cool. I'm changing. I want to have a larger variety of people on my podcast because, like you said, I know all of the benefits and agree with everything that you had just mentioned, but some people have really cool stories, and I don't know if I want to go to more than one a week, but I've kind of shifted my brand a little bit since I started. I changed some things up in April and changed some more things as far as the way I was thinking about things a couple of months after that. And so it's just constantly evolving. So I was curious how you had
and
done that.
I've given myself permission to, kind of shift over time. But I think it's important to, start out with a clear focus and then go from there. I mean, I do have some episodes which, arguably don't have anything to do with content or relationship marketing, but are business related. Like I interviewed a good friend of mine who's a virtual assistant. We talked all about how to find a virtual assistant, what a virtual assistant can do for you. But really the relation there is that if you want to be doing more content marketing, you have to, having virtual assistants will help you do that. I mean, I have somebody edit my podcast. I have somebody post it. I have somebody do the graphics. I have somebody do the show notes. So the way I am able to put out more content and market more with my podcast is because I have virtual assistants. So that's the tie in there. And, I interviewed Diane Gardner about taxes because, of course, that's also relevant to having a successful business is having the right entity. So, yeah.
So I normally would go right into some of the standard questions that I like to ask everybody. But before I do that, I'll just cut some time from that and ask another good question for you. Hopefully it's a good question. How did you learn how to do all of this stuff? You said your degree was in communications. You worked for a nonprofit, and your dad's been coaching you on some of these things. But how did you learn how to do, I'm sure you're on WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
How did you learn that and the technical parts of starting a podcast? Are you a technical person? Are you a researchy type person? Did you learn but just by doing and fumbling through it? How did you put all of this together? Because now you've got 3 or 4 sites, you got the podcast, you've got a business, you hire VAs, you've got a TV show, you blog, you're doing all sorts of. How did you figure out how to do all of that?
I am Superwoman.
There you go. That works.
So I am not a techie person. I think back in college, we were working on some type of free WordPress site. And honestly, WordPress is as far as how to post a blog post, like that's pretty simple on how to do. You just click on add post and put your stuff in there and click publish. I did not build my website. So really for me, I have just invested in people that know how to do the stuff that I don't know how to do. So I've got a guy. So when I'm ready to build a new website, I say, Chris, I need a new website. Here's the domain. Here's the information from GoDaddy. Here's the web copy. Please design it. So that's how I did that. So there's definitely money being invested into that. So, in terms of, cash flow and everything, like I've built out this platform of, videos and podcasts and blogs and different businesses, but, I've invested a lot of money into making that happen. So if it's something that, for people listening, they're like, well, I need to do it all myself. That's fine. It might take a lot longer to get there if you're going to do it all yourself, unless you are super techie. So yeah, I honestly, the answer is just, having a good VA team, and then just, you do listen to Michael O'Neill on the Solopreneur Hour? He
I haven't. I know Michael.
Oh yeah, you had his shirt on, right, at NMX. Of course, you know him. See how memorable that was? Way to go, Michael. So
someone told me I should have had my own shirt.
Yeah,
because it was so memorable. Well, but yes,
one of his coaching clients is this guy. I think his name is Ron Fugel. Fire and adjust, and I really like that phrase. I can't even think of another way to say it, but you just fire and adjust. You do something, and then when it doesn't work, you change it. And that's really what I've done is, I hired a virtual assistant. She wasn't a great fit, cut ties with her, figured something else out, found somebody else that could do the job better. So it's just been a constant, game of taking massive action. I just take action. I move at the speed of instruction. So I have my dad as my business coach. I invest financially in his mastermind group. So I have, I'm in a mastermind group. There's 20 something really successful entrepreneurs from all different industries. So when I need to do something, or if I want to launch a new service or product, I get their feedback. And I have all these different successful entrepreneurs who are able to give me suggestions and advice and help. So, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's how I've made it happen. I just take massive action and invest in the help and resources of other people.
Yeah, I've got some coaching clients, and I just started a private mastermind that's doing some really cool stuff, and love that. But so often I find people are trying to figure out solutions to step 7, 8, and 9 problems, and they're trying to figure out those answers before they start step 1. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to course correct along the way. You said fire and adjust. Course correct is kind of the term I like to use. And like you can't figure out those step 7, 8, and 9 problems, because they might change. You might course correct at step 4, and what you had all planned out, well, you're not even going to do that anymore.
Yeah, Matt Terrio, who I believe you interviewed, I think
yes, excellent.
He talks a lot on his podcast. I forget the way he says it. I hate when I try to quote someone, because then I just butcher it. But it's walk to the corner, turn, and then you'll see further. And I know there's a better way to say that quote, but it's essentially, you're not going to see the whole road ahead. You just have to take one step, then take the next step. I mean, sometimes I'll have clients come to me and I'm like, I don't know if I can book their guests. That's a really weird niche. They have really weird specifications of who they want. And, there have been times where I send people away and say, I'm really not the best fit for you. But more often than not, I'm going to say, I work with people not feeling 100% confident that I can do it, but I do it anyway, and it works out most of the time. Because
what's the weirdest niche that you've ever been asked to get a guest for? Can you tell me without alienating that person? Is like their only
Yeah.
one
Well,
underwaterbasketweavers.com or something?
I guess it's not really niche. I guess that wasn't really. I can tell you some stories of ones that didn't work. So somebody wanted to interview angel investors, and that really didn't work out because
Aren't they anonymous?
yeah, I mean they're not all anonymous. A lot of people that they have angel investor in kind of their title, but that one really didn't work out because he like wanted angel investors who lived in a very specific region, who did a very specific
Oh,
thing, and it was just like way too specific. And then, sometimes I won't work with people because they have a very different philosophy. Like I had somebody that hired me to book guests. They wanted to turn their teleseminar into a podcast, which I'm like, sure, yeah, repurpose it. It's the same type of audio content, but as you might know, on a telesummit, people are required to email their list as being a speaker on the show. Being a speaker on the telesummit, one of the things that you do is you email your list. That's not something you do with a podcast. You don't email your entire list saying, "Hey, I'm going to be on this podcast." It's just not really what we do. And he wanted me to require guests to do that, and I said, "I'm not going to do that." And I said,
yeah.
and so I fired him. I said, listen, I wish y'all the best, but I'm not going to, kind of compromise my philosophy and how I think it should be done just to, make your $100 that you're paying me or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I would have 1,000 questions for you, but I want to ask some of the ones that I ask
Sure.
everybody, and I know I have a good one for you towards the end. But being on the Empowered podcast, I usually ask what the word empower means to you. So Jessica, what does the word empower mean to you?
I think the word empower means you have the confidence to do something that you don't know if you can do. Kind of just really similar to what we were just talking about is, I feel empowered to do this, even though I don't know if it's going to, even though I'm not sure it's actually going to work out.
I don't I don't think after 70 or so interviews someone's given me that type of answer, just the power to do something that you don't know for sure if you can do it or not. I love that. So, what's the last movie that you saw?
Oh,
Is it a kids movie?
No, my my son doesn't really watch TV or movies yet. So, my husband and I watched the movie Chef. It was on demand, and it has Sofia Vergara in it, and I forget the actor's name, but it was a great.
Was it Jon Favreau?
Yes.
Okay.
He was a chef at a restaurant, and then he quit, and then he started his own food truck. So it's kind of an entrepreneurial vibe to it, but it was a very heartwarming. I think there's some cursing, so I don't know if you want your kids to watch it, but it was very family friendly. I liked it a lot, and it was made you hungry because he's cooking like amazing food.
Was it a documentary or was it just like a normal?
It was just a normal movie. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have to look at that again because I've heard it's good. I've heard about it. That's how I knew Jon Favreau was in it. I think he might have produced it too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was a documentary, and I was like, yeah.
No, it was good. I recommend it.
Very cool. I will have to check that out. So normally I ask about tips in general, but if you would answer this question just specifically for the women in the audience, what is one tip or piece of advice that you would give women in business, or the Jessica of a year or 18 months ago who is kind of, your background's not in business, you've seen your dad doing it, and the future is somewhat uncertain? What's one tip or piece of advice that you could give that person?
I guess one tip or piece of advice is only do it, only start a business, only go down this road if you are okay with failure, if you are okay with taking risks, and if you are okay making a lot less money than you used to for a long time. Because I had a lot of friends, a lot of girlfriends. Oh my gosh, I want to do what you're doing. You're staying at home and you have an income and da 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 da. And they don't realize that, it's only till very recently that, I've basically replaced my income. And it takes a long time. You really have to be okay with, as like Mark Cuban would say, eating ramen noodles for dinner. And I think people don't realize how much hustle and how hard it is at the beginning. And so women, I know that a lot of women want to do this because they want to be stay-at-home moms, and I totally support that, and that's why I wanted to do it. But just you need to know that there's risk, and that you have to have a supportive partner too. So I hope you have a supportive spouse if you're going to do this. And I don't know if that was more of a tip or trying to scare people away, but
no, I love that answer too. I get some fantastic answers to that question, and yours absolutely lived up to the very best. So great advice. Just random question for you. Did you the way you answered that question made me wonder, have you lost any friends going through this process? Has their perception of you changed to the point where they're like, yeah, Jessica's not really the type of person that I want to hang out with anymore?
Oh, God. I mean, the answer is yes. I would hope that none of my friends have actually thought that about me, but I guess, in all honesty, there have been friends that I have made less of an effort to stay in touch with because, I mean, we all know that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that as an entrepreneur, your mindset and who you're hanging out with is so critical to your success, that there definitely are people in my life that would not have contributed positively to that. So, I've definitely made less of an effort with some people to, stay in touch with them because I need to focus on being around people that were, supportive and whatnot. So, when I look around at my circle of friends and peers, it's definitely changed. It hasn't been a decision. I am not going to be friends with you anymore. But I mean, as you grow and change and kind of decide who because I have when you're married and you have kids, like you have so free time to hang out with people and like talk on the phone to people that you really need to think carefully about who you are going to give that free time to.
Yeah. And I don't know. Just that I know that was a personal question, and thank you.
I don't think these friends are listening, so
probably not. So thank you for answering that. I just know some people are, and I've had this conversation with people not on the podcast. Oh, you should be friends with everybody. But you're right. We are the average of the people we spend the most time with, income-wise, thought-wise, success-wise, all in so many different ways. And when you do make the sacrifices to take such a significant pay cut like I did and start building from scratch or trying to make ends meet, you stop going out to eat, you stop going to the movies. There are a lot of sacrifices. And if you have friendships that are built on, going to the movies and partying or whatever that you have to give up, sometimes those friends slip away. And like you said, make less of an effort to stay in touch with them. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Absolutely.
Why don't you give one of those hours to a successful person instead of, I don't have anyone in mind here, but the drunk slob,
right.
going to the club.
And a big part for me was there were some people in my life that, are still, absolutely in my life, but, I may spend less time having conversations with them or, make a slight, smaller effort to see them, is because there is a lot of people have a really polluted mindset about money and what it means to make money.
Filthy rich, that phrase right there.
There are a lot of people in this country and probably around the world, but that think making money, becoming wealthy, becoming rich, aspiring to make money is bad, and that rich people are bad and rich people are selfish. And, there are some people that definitely think that, and that I've had to distance myself from, because I aspire to make more money and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So there, gosh, we could probably go on a whole hour about that. I won't ramble on.
Yeah, exactly. More money you make, more you can give, and
the more
however Dave Ramsey says. But yeah, exactly. We could talk about that for a long time. But Jessica, thank you for taking some extra time and hanging out with me today. If someone wanted to thank you for being on the show and thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience with the listeners of the Empowered Podcast, where can we send those people?
Oh, thank you. This was really, really a lot of fun. Conversation went into different directions I wasn't expecting, but it was great. So, my podcast is at rtspodcast.com. I'll give you my email. It's jessica@interviewconnections.com. And you can connect with me on Twitter at Jess Rhodes, ESS.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you again for coming on the show today. I wish you all the best of luck and can't wait to see you speaking at Podcast Movement and New Media Expo in the future. And again, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Ellery.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the episode today. I love this conversation with Jessica. Just really practical tools from someone who's doing exactly what we all want to do. She's built a business from scratch. She's making money. She's also got all of the responsibility that comes with being an entrepreneur. And sometimes that kind of responsibility is something maybe it's difficult to talk about, and sometimes it's difficult for other people to understand. If you are looking for a group of people who are trying to do what you are wanting to do as well, I've got a couple things that I want you to mention, I want to mention to you. If you are at your computer, I want you to go up to your browser, up to the URL bar where you can type in addresses and everything. Don't go to Facebook or don't go to Twitter or anything like that. I want you to go to a new URL that I've just put up, and it wasn't even available to tell you about as of the last episode. So don't get mad at me for not sharing this up until this point, but go to members.ellerywells.com. Go to members.ellerywells.com. I have a membership site that I am putting together specifically for people like you. If you are listening to this, you are of a certain type of person who's wanting to escape normal and do something incredible with their life. I'm putting together this membership site. If you're listening to this live at the end of 2014 here in December, there's a special early bird price to get in. It's $14 a month. It's going to go up to $24, and there's some other options there as well that have live video training or live training calls. I don't know if they're going to be video. They might. I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't be. But I want you to check that out and become a member of this, because getting the equipment that you need and the tools and resources and templates, that is one of the biggest struggles that I went through when I was building my business. And I bet people like Jessica had that same struggle, just not knowing where to get those resources, not knowing exactly where to get those answers. But all the stuff that I've used to build my business over the last 3 years, it'll be my 3-year anniversary on January the 29th. So actually my 5-year wedding anniversary on January the 30th. So big time things coming in January. Anyway, check out members.ellerywells.com. I want you to be a part of that. And I don't want you to struggle for a year and a half like I did. I want you to have all of the equipment and resources that you could possibly want or need to help you get away from a boss that doesn't like you or a job that you don't like it. And just want to make you successful in however you want to be and can be. Go to members.ellerywells.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. We'll see you next week.